Hi guys, welcome to my channel DataWisdom. Today we are going to see how do we create a table into Oracle. So we use create table statement for creating a table, and then we have to provide the table name with which you want to create your table. Then you will have to open your brackets. So into these brackets you will have to provide your column name and data type for that particular column. So suppose my this is my column 1 and it would be its data type, and then we have to provide whether that column is nullable or not null. Okay, then column definition will end with a comma, and then we can, in similar fashion, we can provide our column 2, right, and n number of columns those are required. Okay, so we can provide our definition until column n. Okay, we'll see an example how do we do that. I'll comment this first. So if we have to create a multi-line comment, start it with /* and end it with */. Okay, so we'll write a create table statement. We'll see how do we create a table. So let's say we have to create a table customer, which will have our columns as customer ID, customer name, customer address, and whichever state that address falls into. Okay, so let's create a table. We'll use our statement create table, right? And then our table name is, say, customer. Now into this customer we'll define our columns. So we have to define our columns between this brackets, right? So suppose my first column is customer ID. Okay, so the data type for this customer ID column, suppose I am giving it as number 10. That means data type for customer ID is number, and the length for this column would be 10. Okay, and then say this column is not null. That means that this column will not accept any null values. Okay, second column is, say, customer name. It is of data type varchar 2, and name length, suppose it is 100. Again, I do not want my customer name to be nullable. Then suppose I am declaring one more column, address, which is of type varchar 2. Address could be of length 200, and this column is nullable, right? Now suppose I want to have these 3 columns only into my table. Okay, so whenever we are defining multiple columns, those definition should be separated by comma. The syntax would be create table, table name, into brackets will provide your column name, data type for that particular column, and constraint whether that column is nullable or not. Okay, let's see. We create this table, select this complete statement, click on this run statement, script is running, and your table has been created. Okay, let's see. If we want to see the definition of this table, we'll execute our command describe our table name. Okay, let's execute this, and it will give us the definition of that particular table that we have created. Okay, now suppose we want to drop this table, so the statement would be drop table your table name. So this statement will delete your table from your database. Okay, so table customer has been dropped, and now if I say this, run this statement to describe this customer table, I should get an error that table does not exist. So I have got an error, object customer does not exist. Okay, now suppose while defining your table statement, you want to define a primary key as well on that table. Okay, what is primary key? Primary key is a field. Okay, it could be a single field or a combination of multiple fields that contains a unique record, or that is the unique identifier for a particular record. Okay, so our primary keys cannot be null, and their values into primary key cannot be repeated, or we cannot have duplicate values based on our primary key. Okay, so how do we define our primary key? So we'll see, we'll define our primary key into this particular create table statement only. Okay, so now I want to create a table customer which will have these 3 columns and also a primary key constraint. Okay, so I'll add an constraint. Okay, so the keyword for adding constraint is constraints. Okay, what constraint do I want to add? I want to add a constraint customers underscore pk. Okay, the constraint will be primary key, and which column do I want to give as a primary key? I'll give that column name over here. So suppose I want to give customer ID as my primary key. Okay, so let's run this and see if my table gets created with the primary key customer name. So it has created the customer, and so once we have created our table, we have defined our primary key. Let's describe the table that we have created. So we'll run our query describe customer. We'll see the result. It will show us that table has been created with customer ID, its data type, whether it is nullable or not,